hold up. Welcome to my South Africa travel vlog, part 1, the travel day. Come along with my husband and I to Kruger National Park and St. Lucia as first-time travelers to South Africa. I'm from the United States, my husband is from France, and we're currently living in Paris. So this video will detail some useful on-the-ground tips so you know what it's really like to travel to Kruger from other parts of the world. I think it's important to share the tales of woe along with the awe-inspiring sights, so be prepared for the highs and lows and everything in between, because we've had it all on this trip. Part 2 of this series is our self-drive safari day within Kruger National Park. Be sure to check out part 3, the private safari and sunrise safari we did, as well as part 4, which is St. Lucia, a hippo safari, and being around the ocean. So come travel with us from Paris to Johannesburg, South Africa. We flew from Charles de Gaulle to Istanbul, had a brief layover there, and then on to Johannesburg. It was my first Turkish Airlines flight and would recommend for sure. I accidentally got 2 meals because I ordered the vegetarian one and it came out later, so yay! We had a 2-hour layover in Istanbul in the middle of the night, and that airport is ginormous. You feel like you're just walking and walking for no reason. But we made it on our flight to Johannesburg, watched some important movies like The Lion King, obviously, slept a little bit on and off like you do on a red-eye, and before we knew it, we were landing in Johannesburg and watching the plane land with these live cameras. Picked up our rental car at the Johannesburg airport, and this is the route we took to Hazyview, where our Airbnb was just outside of the park. We made a playlist for the trip because obviously, and because we were on the road a lot, and this song was definitely the theme song. I love you, Africa! We randomly stopped into this mall food court for lunch, and there's this South African burger chain that was really good, and Kid Rock lives in the small town I grew up in, so that was funny. We were still so excited taking in the changing landscapes at this point, but we were also getting very tired from our red eye and just driving. So only the sweet voices of Travis and Jason Kelsey could keep us going. And thus began the very first of many construction sites we would see on South African roads. They're truly everywhere, as are the flag wavers. Found a grocery store to get some necessities at. I'm a vegetarian, so I wanted to make sure we had something in the car in case there weren't meals available for me inside the park. These white vans are public transportation, and we noticed they started all passing us as we were in a bit of a traffic jam, and very soon after we realized that we were in a huge traffic jam due to an accident, and that these vans and a bunch of other cars were all off-roading, and so we decided to join the off-roading experience. And I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty scary because we were new to South Africa, still figuring everything out. We were in an SUV that I didn't know their off-roading capabilities and didn't really know where we were, and thought about what if we got stuck here. But guess what? That is part of the traveling experience, isn't it? And it all worked out for us, and we got back on the main road and skipped that huge traffic jam, and I guess that's, just one of the stories we can tell. We made it to our Airbnb, which is on a farm property with impalas in the backyard, which was pretty cool. We got to see them resting out there as we were taking it all in. We were pretty proud of ourselves for finding our Airbnb and getting to this point and everything in the dark. I will say, and I'll say more about this later, driving in South Africa at night is challenging. I'd heard about that before we went, and now I know why. So I would try to avoid driving in the night if at all possible. Okay, so here's what I wish I knew before going to South Africa, or things that I would tell my friends or family if they're going to South Africa for the first time. So before you go, I would look up what vaccines are recommended for people visiting at that time of the year. I personally did not receive the hepatitis B vaccine as a child, so I got that before I went from a doctor. It was really quick and easy to get in Paris. Also, I had a visit with my doctor to have them prescribe anti-malarial medication because malaria can be common in that area. So it's just a simple pill that you take for the entire time you're in South Africa, as well as the week after in our case, and it's tasteless, fine, and we didn't catch malaria or have any negative side effects. So I personally would recommend that. I also would verify your country's specific requirements for visiting South Africa. As a United States citizen and as my husband being a French citizen, we didn't require a visa to enter South Africa, but some countries do, so that's definitely something to verify before you get on a plane. We thought about having a layover in Kenya through Kenya Airways, and I was really excited about it. However, we realized that South Africa needed you to have more immunizations if you're coming through Kenya on your way to South Africa. So just to verify if there are any immunizations you might need for a country you're having a layover in. That is something I didn't think about right away. And then that ended up not being the best choice for us, and we chose Istanbul. And so speaking of Istanbul airport, my experience going there and transiting in and out through Istanbul airport both ways is that it is ginormous. It's seriously like they tried to take up as much space as possible with one singular building. Like, it's so tall, so long, just like massive open spaces that I don't understand why they exist. But all that to say, it does take some time to walk through, at least for us. It seems like the terminal we landed in was super far away from the terminal we were departing out of to go to South Africa. So I would allow at least 2 hours for your layover there, just to have a comfortable amount of time to get between, so you're not stressing or you don't lose your bags. And they have lots of moving sidewalks if you need assistance getting through. I did see some tram cars, so I would definitely inquire about that before you get to the airport if you are in need of some assistance to get through this extremely large airport. I would also do some research on the different airline options you have to get to Johannesburg or whatever smaller regional airport you're flying into. We had a great experience on Turkish Airways. It was my first time, and I thought the food was great. The people were super friendly and kind. The entertainment options were awesome. So would definitely do again and recommend to my friends and family. Okay, so when it comes to rental cars, it does seem like most people that we saw at least, seem to be flying into local regional airports rather than driving. I think for a future trip, we would also choose to fly into a regional airport, like Kruger has its own airport, or near St. Lucia, there was other smaller airports we could have flown into. I think for this first trip, I'm glad that we did rent a car and have that experience, just so we could see more of South Africa and drive through the local villages and through all the different landscapes. That was really valuable, but it was not convenient for sure, and it was not easy. So it does seem that people renting cars are more of a rarity, but it is an option. And if you're adventurous and up for it, I would definitely recommend it. So there's lots of rental car companies to choose from. Whatever you would do, bottom line is get full rental car coverage, all the insurance you can get, because with the road conditions, everything you're going to deal with, you never know what can happen and you will need it. I'm the kind of person that I rarely get the additional rental car coverage for my rental car, and I just use like my credit card's rental car coverage. But my husband suggested getting the full coverage, and I'm so glad we did, because we ended up needing it, and it saved our butts with like over $1,000 worth of damage that we had on the car from a pothole. So I think I would definitely recommend the full coverage if you do rents. And so more tips on just driving through South Africa and kind of what to expect. There is tons of construction, or at least there was when we were there at the end of the dry season in September. So there's lots of just like, stopped gridlock traffic for 20 minutes at a time, where you're just waiting, not moving whatsoever. And then there's people passing on the right illegally around you and doing dangerous things. There's lots of that. There is lots of changing weather conditions that I was really surprised by. We went through a period driving from Johannesburg to St. Lucia of intense fog. Like, you can hardly see 10 feet ahead of you kind of fog, as well as it got a lot colder. So that was something I definitely didn't know before traveling. So you have to be prepared for a variety of weather conditions. A lot of the towns you might be driving through, if you are driving from Johannesburg to St. Lucia like we did, it's very, very small towns and villages that may or may not have what you need. If you're needing any kind of specific items, I would just be aware of that you might not have easily found restrooms, etc. as well. So, and our Airbnb host gave us some tips on driving in that region of South Africa and said that the rules of the road that she was accustomed to before moving to that region of South Africa, she's from another part of South Africa, the rules that she was accustomed to of driving did not apply in that area of St. Lucia, South Africa. She was saying that people will often take a lot of risks while driving, and that if you're just driving along a 2-lane highway and someone's passing a car in oncoming traffic in your lane, they will expect you sometimes to get off on the left in the emergency lane and literally drive off the road to like avoid them, rather than, you know, they pass and go back into their lanes. So it can be quite exciting, quite dangerous, and a lot. It can be a lot. And also of note, you are driving on the left side of the road rather than the right, which is what I was accustomed to in US, France, you know, countries like that. So that is something else to get used to. I didn't find it that hard, but now when I drove in the US after this, I was like, wait, I'm not on the left side? And I think bottom line, if Google Maps says it's gonna take 10 hours to get somewhere, expect that it'll take 12 at least. Like, definitely give yourself a buffer, because Google Maps does not seem to understand how long it takes to get around in these areas of South Africa that we were in. So definitely budget extra time wherever you are going, and definitely learn from our mistakes, because we did not allow enough time. And the final driving tip I will say that I would tell anyone I love going to South Africa for the first time is that driving at night can be really treacherous. So at least on the 2-lane highways that we were going on between Johannesburg and St. Lucia, it was very remote in some areas, like I was saying, and there are some really bad potholes. And you might think, oh, I know potholes, that's not a big deal. Well, the dangers of driving at night is that there are basically no overhead lights on the road. Your headlights only go so far, and so you would be driving, you know, at high speed, and before you know it, there's a pothole right there, and you have but no choice but to hit it. And so that happened to us. My husband had to change a tire on the side of the road at like 11 p.m. There's animals in the bushes. He could hear like some kind of wild animal alongside this big highway. So it was not fun. And basically everywhere we went, it was just not lit, and so it was really hard to find what we were looking for at night. So a lot of the Airbnb hosts that I interacted with always recommended getting wherever you're going before nightfall, because it can be really hard to find places. So obviously sometimes you can't avoid it, but if you can, try to avoid driving at night. The final non-driving tip that I would say for travel day of getting to South Africa is, once you arrive, try to go to a grocery store before you get to the Kruger National Park area. So there are some bigger towns that you go through if you land at Johannesburg Airport and are driving to Kruger, and you can stop at grocery stores there to just stock up on food that you might need throughout your time in the parks. So I'm a vegetarian, and I was not sure what kind of selections they might have for me inside the park. Turns out they do always have selections for vegetarians at all the restaurants. We had great experiences there, but you also are just driving so much throughout this super fast park, and you don't always know when you're going to be able to stop for lunch or meals. And so I think it's a really good idea to just stop at a grocery store on the way in, make sure you have some essentials so that you are solid once you're in the park. You might find yourself starving in some remote corner of the park. and not know the closest rest area is like 3 hours away that has a restaurant. And so it's just nice to have. So we stopped at a grocery store chain called Checkers that was literally like reminiscent of an American grocery store, like very large. And that was obviously very comforting to find upon landing in a new country where you're not sure what kind of options they'd have. It had everything, so that was super helpful. We just like packed peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and fruit for our park days, and that was great. So those are some of my travel day tips getting to South Africa, getting acclimated. Let me know in the comments if there's any other questions you might have about practical tips on the ground for getting to South Africa, and be sure to stay tuned for part 2 where I show our self-drive safari day and how freaking awestruck we were the entire day. Lots of tears, lots of joy. So stick around. Be sure to subscribe to Love What You Love Lauren for more whimsical daily life as an American living in Paris, as well as travel adventures and bits of light along the way. Thank you so much for watching, and always remember, you are valued and you deserve great things. Hope you have a great day.